Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trap Chat, meeting the moment, embracing and navigating pivots. I'm smiling ear to ear because I am sitting across ish next to, depending on how you're looking at it, one of my favorite people, someone that always puts the fire under my behind to help me get the molasses out of my asses. Yeah, so I'm joined by a not a stranger to Trap Chat. Margaret has been here before, and we're going to have another amazing conversation. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I'm not sure how you could be, but just in case, Margaret is a keynote speaker, the host of What's Your Possible trademarked podcast. She's a best-selling author of Leadership, Self-Transformation, 52 Career-Defining Questions Every High-Achieving Woman Must Answer. Grab your copy later. She is also a wife, a mother, the founder of the Inclusion Learning Lab. And again, she just helps future-proof, in her own words, helps future-proof the workforce by closing the AI skills gap. Hi. What's wrong?
It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. Backstage, we said that you were a Swiss Army knife, so I am very excited to see what tool you're going to pull out for each of these questions.
Oh my gosh.
I'm very excited to see that. So let's start where we always do with your career journey. Yours specifically reflects a series of pivotal moments where you've redefined what's possible. Could you share a specific turning point when you had to make a significant pivot that drives your work today?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back on your wonderful podcast. I mean, this is such an amazing conversation, and you are my shero in every sense of the word. I think as women of color, we have to figure out how to navigate together. And that is the epiphany of what you do. So the question is pivoting. I think the most important thing, and not to start off on a sad note, but it was the turning point for my life, right? I was sitting in a desk working as a workers' comp adjuster. I had gone back to school. I had gotten a lot of certifications. I had done a bunch of things. I was learning HR. I was doing a lot of different things. But I hated my job. I didn't like the people I worked with. I couldn't stand my supervisor. I felt she was uber annoying. And I also felt that people were robbing my work. Like they would pile on and I would do the work and I wasn't getting credit. So two things happened, and they happened in rapid succession. A brand new person came in, and I did not have the confidence in myself to take on this additional role. There was a supervisor role, there was an assistant manager role. And I honestly, it wasn't even that I didn't have the confidence. I had a 4-year-old and my kids are 9 years apart. So I won't even try to do the math, like an 11, 12 years old, right? And so I had an older child, I had a younger child. So there's 9 years between both of my kids. And back in the day, and we're talking back in the early mid 90s now, we would get our paychecks and it would have a stub. It was like direct deposit, right? And you get an envelope and the company put a sticker on it with your name, typed in a little label, stuck on the envelope. And I never opened mine. But I was getting ready. I never opened it because it's the same amount of money every twice a month. Like, why open the thing? Didn't make sense. As long as the money ended up in my bank account, why care? But I would pile them up in a drawer. And so I was refinancing my house at the time. And while I was refinancing the house, the bank wanted pay stubs. So I went into the drawer and I rifled through and I started opening the envelopes. And I realized that one of my coworkers, I had gotten her paychecks. I had gotten her pay stubs. Now, I had trained this person. I had brought this person in. They, to interview, I brought this person in. And so when I opened the pay stub, and I haven't told this story but to a few people, but it was pivotal. I opened the pay stub and I realized in doing the math that she was making $39,000 more than me.
More.
A
whole other job salary. More.
And I was at the time, senior litigation manager. I was handling litigation for our local school district. And I realized when I opened the pay stub that her pay was like $800 short of $40,000 more than me. So that was the first thing. That was the first discontent, right? There was nothing different between she and I. We were both educated. I had more experience. I had been on the job longer. So I found the courage. I was angry. And then I found the courage and went to talk to my manager and said, this happened. And his response to me was, okay, so what do you want me to do? And I thought, okay, I want you to bring my salary to her salary. Mm-hmm. That's at a minimum that I want you to do. But technically, I'm in a higher role. So I need you to bring the salary to where it needs to be. So that was the first pivotal moment, right? I was still working. Fast forward, that happened like around April of 1997. In September, my mom got sick. October, she was still sick. November, she was still sick. She went into the hospital right after Thanksgiving, and she was in the hospital about a month. And 2 days before Christmas, I got the call from the hospital that she had passed away. And I was like, what the hell? I was sitting at my desk at work. This is the part that I want people to hear, not the part that my mother died. And I've come to terms with that. It's 27, 28 years ago. Heartbroken forever, but that's not the point that I want people to hear. In that moment, I was sitting at my desk. I couldn't take time off because I didn't have time. I couldn't go because it was coming up to the holidays. It was peak time. I had to work. My mom's in the hospital. And I got the call that she had passed away. I was sitting at my desk at work. And in that second, I said, it's done. We had my mother's funeral in January after the holidays, and I resigned. I didn't have another job. I didn't have another career. I didn't have anything. The organization begged me to stay for 5 months. And so I want everybody to hear this part about knowing your value, because I'm getting to the story point. And I think maybe I needed to tell this story on your podcast today.
Thank you for doing this, because I am, wow.
Because it's about us knowing our value, number one. Those words were not in the vernacular 34 years ago. Those words of knowing your value was not in our lexicon. It wasn't something we spoke about. Okay. Yeah. They asked me to stay till May, which I did. I stayed till the last day of May. So it's poetic. It's coming up now. And they replaced me with 4 people.
I almost cursed. 4. And they paid them $10,000 each because to make up for the $40,000 that they owed you per year.
Right. So this is a real story. It's not a makeup one. And sometimes, you asked me in the setup for this, what was the pivotal moments for my career? And I really had to think. Because when you think about the pivotal moments, when you make decisions, the pivotal moments are these moments. So 2 things happen after that. So I could put a bow on this. So, because I think it's important that we understand when we see people out there doing the work that we do today, where it is that they walked and what it is that they had to get to that place.
Absolutely.
Okay. Two things happened when I resigned that May 31st. I filed the corporation for my business.
Yay.
And I took on a regular role. I didn't start my business. I took a regular role on. And I said to myself, the second I can make in the business 50% of my salary, it's time to quit the regular role. Right? And I took that job as a risk manager, because that was my at the time I was in risk management.
Okay.
And 6 days in, they fired the HR leader. And the owner of the company, 14,000 employees, she came into my office. Never forget it. She came into my office and she says, Margaret, you're doing risk management. You can do HR too. It's all about people. I'll hire you the best lawyer. I will make sure that he's on speed dial and he will teach you everything you need to know about HR. Everything you need to know about HR, he will teach it to you.
Okay.
And you are now the director of risk management and HR. We
Okay.
could switch that around. We could make it HR and risk management. It doesn't matter, but you've got both jobs because I don't plan to fill the other one. And we have 17 states and 14,000 employees. Have a good life. I'm going back to my office. Those were all the pivotal moments in my life. That part.
Doing too many jobs and getting paid for none. Sounds like pretty much.
You got it.
Wow. So you just mentioned about 6 moments of disruption. and that's the foundation of my next question, because we are in a lot of disruptive moments right now. One specifically for the type of work that you do is with AI. So when we're talking about AI transforming the workforce, how can leaders build and sustain trust when employees are unsure about their place in the future?
This moment that we're in right now is extremely pivotal. And let me tell you why it's pivotal. It's not even about the trust. Organizations have to make the decision that they are going to always put human at the forefront of the AI process. That they have to think human first and AI second. If we start thinking AI first and human second, we are not only going to disrupt the current work cycle, but we are going to absolutely dissolve the future of work, right? AI is here to keep the human center inside of the process. AI is not here to replace the human center. And if organizations do not get this right, not only will they erode trust in their employees, but they will erode trust in how the organization's future is defined. And that's critical.
It is absolutely critical. Thank you for sharing that. Let's get a little bit more personal. You have a lot of sage wisdom that you share in your keynotes, in your books, in your podcasts, in your trainings. You do a lot. Like when I started like running down all the stuff you do, I was like, well, how much of this am I going to say? We're going to be here for the whole episode talking about the work that she does. I'll be introducing her for an hour before we even get to the conversation. But one of the things you said that I love is that inclusion. And that's a big word, one of those forbidden triggers we're not even supposed to say today, especially not in conjunction with a D word and an E word. But you said inclusion does not happen in silos. It requires relationships across all stakeholders. How have you intentionally invested in building those cross-functional relationships? And what is maybe an unexpected benefit that emerged from a particular connection?
One of the things that I realize, and I'm 25 plus years into doing this work, okay? A lot of folks came to the inclusivity table after George Floyd. The majority of people didn't necessarily understand the full circle of inclusivity. Inclusivity is not about talent. Inclusivity is about every single stakeholder that make up the business. It includes the customer base. It includes the board and governance. It includes the vendor partners. It includes the talent internally. It includes all the moving parts that make up the corporate ecosystem. And you could take that to the community. The question that we have to ask around the word that we aren't supposed to be able to say, which is inclusivity, right? Which the word, it will never go away. So let's level set that, right? The thing that we have to understand, and the question is, who are the stakeholders we are serving? How do we serve them better? How do we help them live to their full potential? How do we help them see what's possible inside of our organization and outside of our organization? And how do we tap in to what makes them feel that they are vested and included in the moment? And that starts by addressing dysfunctional leaders, dysfunctional organization tracks, dysfunctional processes, and trying to create functional organizations that understand that inclusivity is that 18-year-old that's taking the first job that's walking into the door. It is the 40-year-old who is questioning their career. It is the 60-year-old who's saying, oh my gosh, I'm at the end of my career. What have I done? And it's the 65-year-old who's walking out the door of your organization, who's taking all of the institutional knowledge with them, and you're making no space for that person to come back and utilize their institutional knowledge within the organization. Inclusivity is an entire eco-cycle. It doesn't end with people. It doesn't begin with people. It begins with the organization making the decision, who do we want to serve and how do we serve them to the best of our ability? And if we cannot answer that question, then we do not have a foundation or a basis for anything that is inclusive.
Wow. I just learned so much because of the business that I do, because of the work that I do. I always think about inclusivity in terms of talent specifically. Like, I am in a silo. And what you just said I had to move out of it. I had to say, yeah, I'm not just talking about this. Yeah, I touch on those other parts of the ecosystem, but I really only think about inclusivity on a daily basis in terms of who are you hiring or who are you promoting? Who is doing this work? What does the team look like? So, wow, you have really just had me take a look at myself and how I'm even thinking about things, and that's going to be a serious pivot for me. Which is a great segue into my next question. Pat myself on the back, because our most challenging pivots, they often require that we acknowledge when an approach we had is no longer effective. And we saw that in 2020. We saw that just now in 2025 with my silly self. Can you share an experience when you had to hold yourself or an organization accountable for a necessary change? And then how did you help ensure that extended beyond words, performativeness, and extended into meaningful action?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think here's the first thing about a pivot, right? When we have to pivot, even in this moment right now, here's something that I don't think that we talk about at all, right? Even for us as talent leaders, people who are doing the work of inclusivity, people who are out here every day trying to make sure that the right people get hired, that the spaces we occupy are including of everyone, right? When things change, when we have to pivot, the first thing that we have to do is grieve. We don't tend to want to feel the pain of pivoting. We don't want to feel the pain of pivoting. We cannot pivot even inside of an organization and not grieve what we're letting go of, what we are changing. A pivot is a change management process. Everything that we do inside of an organization is a change management process. I've done a bunch of archetypal research where I look at archetypes of people in organizations. Who are they? What do they stand for? Right? Inside of every organization, there are people who are disruptors, who are going to disrupt the norm, who will say, whatever change is coming, I'm going to disrupt that. I'm going to actively work to make sure that change doesn't happen. There's another set of people who are in the organization who are going to sit around and they are going to say, how do I create and continue the status quo? Right? How do I every day maintain the status quo? Let me tell you how you know these people. These are the historians in the organization that want to tell you the history of the organization before they answer the question about what the organization needs or where we're going next. They want to tell you what happened 20 years ago when they started. They never left a 20-year spot ago. They can tell you about every leader that's come, everybody that's gone, everything that's happened in the organization. They are there to hold the institutional knowledge and maintain the status quo. There are people who are sitting in the middle and they're persuadable. There are people who want to be persuaded, who say, I like my status quo friends, but I could see us doing something different. They're the ones that give you input on what could be, but they make no move because they're waiting for somebody to give them permission to move. And then you have the people who are true believers, who believe in whatever it is that we want to have happen in the organization. They believe, they'll drink the iced tea, they are right there, they show up, they're saying here, okay? The problem with the true believers is they believe, but they don't act. So when you ask them to make a decision and we ask them to do something that is against the grain, they flip from being true believers to either being detractors or status quo people. Because now I've come for the territory. I've said to a manager who's never hired a woman, you need to get a woman on your team, and we're giving you 10 slates of women to interview. Pick the best one. We're not going to tell you who to pick, but you need a woman on your team because you've never had one, right? Now that person who's a true believer in inclusivity is suddenly now a status quo detractor because his male ego has been parsed and he feels that we've thrown him in boiling water. And the fact that you're making me put a woman on my team, or making me put a Black person on my team, or making me put a Hispanic on my team, or making me put an Asian or a Native American person on my team, or how could you do that to me? I'm clutching my pearls. I hate you, right? But then you have people in the organizations who are partners, who want to see things happen, who want to see things change, who want to make sure that things happen. Here's what happens now. When I work with organizations, I try to figure out where they are. Sometimes entire organizations profess one thing and they sit in status quo. They may profess that they want to move the planet. We had an organization that we were working with that asked us to set up employee resource groups. Their idea of diversity and inclusion was employee resource groups. For me, that was okay. And this is where I think as diversity and inclusion people, we get caught. We get caught in, they need a policy, they need a thing, they need a thing. No. The question is, what stakeholders can I serve inside of the box that I've been given? So you wanted me to set up employee resource groups, and I set them up. I made one for women. And that was the first one you wanted to launch, and we launched the one for women. Here's what happened. I get on a one-on-one with the chief HR officer, and he says to me, well, you have them doing a lot of stuff. They're doing mentorship. They're doing, purpose. They're doing their vision. They're building their they're going SWOT analysis about their career, blah, blah, blah. I thought this was going to be a reading group where they got together to do a book club and read books together and feel good about themselves in the little book club that you created. Hell no. That's not what I was doing. That's what you wanted. But what I was doing was empowering every woman in that organization to stand up and recognize that she could have a place in this organization, that she could find her voice, and that I could empower these women in the short time I had with the organization to create a
Mhm.
circle around themselves, to empower their future, and to create processes and policies that would move them forward, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes we have to not ask for the moon when we're trying to create inclusivity. We take the
Mm.
little box that they gave us and we ask, who can I serve and who can I help to be more empowered in this current moment right now?
Okay.
And what does that look like? And here's the thing. This is what many people don't understand. If I if you've never eaten a cake before in life and I buy you a cake and it's beautiful and I cut a slice of it and I give it to you with a scoop of ice cream and you eat it, you will never uneat that again. It's
True.
here.
Okay.
Right? I don't need to create tons of movement in the organization. I have to create
Oh,
people who are now more engaged, who see themselves differently, who now become the voice and champions. Diversity and inclusion, equity, equality was never about the one person that's doing the role. It's about
yeah.
getting everybody else in the organization to become partners and to become true believers and help them to do FOMO on the ones who want to keep the status quo. And that was our goal. That was our
Yeah.
role. Don't try to slice the whole big cake. They're not giving us the cake. They're giving us a slither. Use the slither for the maximum impact that that sliver can be used for.
I love it. I love that. So I love how you set that up. So they said we want an ERG, and you gave them something that extended beyond
Yep,
performance because they actually asked for performance, but they didn't know what they were asking for.
that part. So here's a little secret that I did. I took my book and I donated my book to the organization, to the women's
Okay.
group.
Y'all
I
got it.
gave them all copies of the book. And then I led a series of programs around how do you
Yes.
manage your career effectively. And I did that within the context of the contract I was given. I didn't go back to them and say, I need more money, because I knew that once I educated 200 women around managing their career effectively, they would then be able to be the voice in the organization. We have to recognize that that can never change. They could dismantle the employee resource
Mm,
group tomorrow morning, but those women that have been a part of the core will always be there to understand their role in the organization. So you don't get to dismantle it because it's already in the heart space. The work that we do every day, the work that you do, the work that I do, is heart space work. It's not head
yeah.
space work. It's heart space work, right? One of my best friends, her name is Tanya. She said she's also a facilitator, and she said this is heart space work. If we cannot get
Mhm.
into the heart space of people, then we will never get into their head.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like just going to the last question because no, yeah. Um, well, let's do this real quick because I do think that it's an important topic. You know, we're not going to stop. I'm not going to stop talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, justice, whatever extra letters you want to put down there. So sorry, y'all, get over it. But you coined a phrase called something like the illusion of readiness. So there's this illusion that yes, we're ready. This is the perfect time, and that's always a reaction to something that happened. So just how do we shift out of that mind space? You know, whether we're talking about DEI, whether we're talking about real AI transformation, adoption, implementation, it could be anything from, like you said, starting an ERG to allowing people to work hybrid instead of return to office 5 days a week. So could you just talk about what is an early sign that folks are missing? that helps them move from that reactive to the proactive state?
So let me give you the backstory behind illusion of readiness. I'm going to tell the
Okay.
story fast and quick and to the point because I want people to I want people to know that this work in the trench is it's hard. It's hard, right? I was working with a client company. They hired me to come in to do a full assessment of their organization. They didn't have HR. They didn't have a proper HR. Anyway, I was doing a full battery of consulting with them: HR, talent, future of work, readiness, and the whole bit, right? And eventually they hired a CHRO, and the CHRO came on board, and she was pretty, eclectic. And so I said, okay, great. So we're in a meeting, the diversity council, and she came up with this slogan: we're not ready, but we're trying. And this was going to be her slogan for the diversity and inclusion program. We're not ready, but we're trying, and we're getting ready. And I sat in that meeting in that moment, and I unmuted, and my business partner Inigo was about to, he was crawling under the table. And I unmuted and I said, let me explain what that sentence means. I'm not ready. I'm getting ready. We're trying. I said, here's the deal. As a Black woman, I've always had to be ready. I didn't have an option but to be ready. I woke up this morning, I had to be ready. When I was born, I had to be ready. I was ready even when you weren't ready. And I've had to show up in spaces where no one was ready for me, and I had to be ready to be in that space. I had to be ready to deal with your microaggression, your anger, your this, your that, and still be ready to show up with a smile on my face. So that slogan that you came up with, that slogan says, it doesn't matter, Black people. We are never going to be ready for you, but we're going to try to be ready for you. But y'all need to be okay. I said, and I'm not going to sit here as your consultant and allow you to use that statement. So we got fired from that account. Excuse me. So we got fired. We literally got fired. The CHRO gaslighted us. She actually had one of her minions call one of our prior clients and try to badmouth us, right? Because I was aggressive and I was just, now I had been there 2 years working with this client. So I wasn't being aggressive or nasty. I was just not going to, in that moment, allow you to not, I was not going to allow you. I was not going to un-Margaret myself. My husband says, sometimes you're an 8. And I said, I'm an 8 every day. In my Enneagram, I'm an 8 every day. I don't know how to be a 4. I only know how to be an 8. So here's the deal. We have to be willing to speak the truth. Mm-hmm. My grandmother used to say, speak the truth, cause it what it will. He who lies does the same thing still. That was a Jamaican thing grandmother used to say, right? And so I'm not willing to lie for the truth. That is the first order of business, right? I'm going to say what needs to be said. I'm no longer worried in this place in my life that people are going to say, Margaret is not speaking the truth.
Yep.
You're not ever going to un-Margaret me again. Okay. My younger son says, who is this radical? My younger son said, who is this radical person? I mean, he's 32, so he's not younger like a baby. He's 32. Yeah. He says, I don't know this mother of mine. You're like radical. When did you become radical? I'm like, I am not radical, son. You're just hearing the truth, right? The truth is the truth. So back to your question. In this age and in this moment, in this time, we have to be willing to be truth tellers. Truth telling is our own truth, the organization's truth, and the truth about where we are, right? In order for us to survive not only the pressures of the external pressures, but the internal pressures, but our own innate pressures to fit in, to belong, to feel included, to feel that the work we're doing is making a difference. We have to be willing to be truth tellers. And to be a truth teller means that we don't shrink from our purpose. We don't hide our knowledge. And when an organization thinks it's ready, we advance with the organization. But we're also needing to recognize that organizations were never meant to be inclusive. Let me say this and just say this. Let me explain. And I think we've lost this. I was listening to this quote expert on DEI, a young gentleman. He's probably younger than my younger son. I have a 40-year-old and I have a 32-year-old, right? And he says, well, it's the people who went into the organizations to do the work. They're the ones to blame for what is the backlash. Nobody. Go back and look at Ronald Reagan. Everything that's happened now, Reagan wanted to do in 1984. I was around. I was a chief EEOC officer at the time in 1985. That's 40 years ago. The same executive order that we have that's dismantling stuff now was the same executive order that was drafted in 1985. The reason why it didn't occur then is because corporations pushed back. Now corporations are not pushing back. They're allowing it to happen. Here's what we've forgotten, and we need to keenly remember. Organizations are profit centers. Their entire goal is around profit. It's not around people. It's around profit. People are the vehicle that get them to profit. And if people are the vehicle that get them to profit, inclusivity is not what they're doing. They're doing profit-centered work, meaning how do I become more profitable today? How do I maintain my profitability tomorrow? And how do I maintain my profitability into the future? We get in there and we want these soft skills and these things that are feeling good to make us feel good as people. If an organization is not people-centered, they cannot be inclusive. If they are profit-centered, they will always put profit over people. People will be the vehicle to get them to profit, but people will not be the engine that drives profitability. And so when we are looking at organizations as organisms, because the Supreme Court at one point said corporations are people, let's not forget that actually occurred. That was a Scalia decision, 20-something years ago now, right? If organizations are organisms, then the organism is driven by profit. And so one of the questions that I always ask organizations, and I ask the CEOs, because I've always worked with the CEOs in organizations, I ask them, what is the future of this organization in 5 years? And what has the board asked you to do in terms of turning profit? And how do we make sure that people are included in that process? That's my question. Yeah. And when I get the answers, I can determine if they're inclusively ready or if they're doing the perfunctory crap to make sure that their profit is maintained.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing play out right now. What we are seeing play out, and we can get semantics and say we're fighting for diversity, equity, inclusion. We're not.
No, we're not.
Those words were given to us.
Correct.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion were words that were given to us. Let the words go. We are so caught up in the words. Let them go. What we need to know is that if we are at a profitability table with an organization, that we are included in that profitability. Period. Am I on the cost center side of the organization or am I on the profit center side? Here's what people don't talk about. They're hiring us, but they're hiring us on the cost center.
Yep.
We are not at the table where they're slicing up the pie and handing it to us.
Nope.
And so it doesn't matter what we call this. If we are not in the pie room where the pie is being baked and sliced and served on a plate with a nice fork and great china, we are in the cost center side of the house. And as long as we're in the cost center side of the house, we can be terminated, we can be replaced, we can be outsized, right size, downsized. It does not matter because we are a quantity and a commodity to the profit of the organization. That is
Mm.
the message that we need to understand. Nothing else. Stop fighting for these words that really, in essence, are not what these people are thinking.
If I had a microphone, it's dropped. Okay. I love that you said I asked this question because that leads me to my next question. And I like that you mentioned your son said he doesn't know this person. I only know this person. I only know this person. I'm sure the other one is nice too, but
Exactly.
yeah, I'm sure the other one is nice that he knows that. I'm sure that person's nice too. The mom, but the Margaret that I know, the 8. You always ask bold and disruptive questions. One of them is, could your daughter thrive on your team? And we could, for those people that are going to be like, why does it have to be a daughter? Could your child thrive on this team? For someone who wants to meet the moment today, what's the first question they should be asking themselves?
Who is being left behind?
I love that.
So I was just at South by Southwest, and I was invited
Yeah.
at South by Southwest, thank you, to speak on the radical economics of upskilling women for an AI future. Here's what I need everyone to know, and it's poignant. I was in Home Depot last night, and I walked around, and they have self-checkout, and there were 7 cashiers, literally 7 of them, and 1 supervisor standing around. And I came around the corner, and my husband had soil because he's a gardener, and I was buying a lock, and I go to the cash register, and no one said anything to me. And I said out loud, there's 7 of you standing here, and none of you decided you wanted to help me ring up my stuff. And the nice little snippy cashier said, well, you didn't ask for help. No, I don't need to ask for help. It is your job to say, can I help you? Let me ring you up. But that's neither here nor there. Here's what we don't understand, and this is pivotal and critical that we hear it. I was in the Dallas airport. I'm going to South by, but I was in the Dallas airport 2 years ago. And inside of the Dallas airport, there's a little robot in Terminal A that actually you order your stuff on the little robot, you swipe your card, you pay on the little robot goes back to the kitchen and comes back on the tray that's on the second layer of the little robot. Your food is there and you pick it up and go. The Hudson magazine place where we go in and get water and all those things in the airport, right? It now has a gate and a swipey card. So you swipe your card and you go in and you pick up what you want. And then when you come back to the gate, you swipe again, and it's using some AI technology to ring up the process. So I said to those lovely cashiers in Home Depot last night, I said, here's what I know. I'm in HR. In 5 years, none of you will have a job. AI will do this job that you're doing. So you don't have to ask me today if you want to help me, because I know in 5 years, you won't even be here. Now, I was being facetious with them because I wanted to prove a point. They all looked at me like, I had the 5 heads of Eve, right? But 75% of jobs occupied by women and potentially people of color that are entry-level roles have the ability to be disrupted by AI. And AI disruption is not taking the job away and making AI do the whole job. The AI disruption is 25% of the tasks done by that person can be done by AI today. Okay, so if 25% of the job can be taken away, you only leave a 75% role behind. The organizations then decide to merge roles together because 275% roles can make one person, and then there's a person gone. The second challenge that we have is that younger people need a first job that they walk into, a first job that they walk in the door. This is my first job. If the first job is a cashier in a supermarket, and now we're doing self-checkout, And then eventually we're doing swipe the card and the app knows what's in your basket and rings it all up for you in the future, then that first job is now eliminated for that 18-year-old. There is a child. I have a 3-year-old grandson. There is a child right now in kindergarten who will exit in 18 years at the world of work that is not what we have today. And what we are talking about in talent development and talent retention and talent recruiting is how do I write a prompt to prompt whatever we're doing? The discussion we are not having is what exactly does the future of work look like? Who is going to be left behind in this process? And how do we upskill, reskill, right skill them today? How do we work with these moronic school districts to not create programs that are obsolete today that we're putting children in kindergarten into that will not be there in 12 years when they exit the other side? These are the high-level discussions that we need to be having as people of color, as women, as people who are traditionally marginalized and excluded from the process.
Yep.
So if we think that what's going on today, which is a current distraction, it's keeping us from having the actual discussion we need to be having. And so the pivot for me is to not go down the rabbit hole to grab back the diversity, equity, and inclusion words that are technically gone, right? I am now looking at it and saying, if I have a grandson who's 3, and this is what's driving me, what kind of work is he going to enter when he is 20 years old? 17 years from now, what is the world of work going to look like for him? And how do I, in this moment, as a talent leader, as a quote, expert thought leader, and I'm not going to own any of that titling again, I'm going to say, as a person with a voice in the current room, how do I elevate the voice enough so that people start to think now about the future? How do I get them to think right now and say, what is going to be possible for the youth and the children of tomorrow? Because if we want to continue to fight for the crumbs of inclusion, right, we are going to do a disservice to the next generation who is going to be virtually obsolete from the world of work if we don't set up their future differently.
That was a whole masterclass. Like, you say all of the things that I scream and yell so eloquently. Like when I get to cussing and carrying on, it's what you just said in a calm, measured, step-by-step, pragmatic way. And I aspire to that skill set so that people actually listen and don't like shut it off or just be ready to argue back. You know, not to belabor it, but I had this discussion about, it's what you said, who's going to be left behind? And I had that discussion about the boycotts. Now, in theory, that sounds great. Congratulations. But I was asking questions like, who's going to be left behind? They're different questions, but the crux of the question is who's going to be left behind? Where will people who have no other option shop? Who do you think is going to be affected by the people who do those jobs that you're no longer going to their stores? Who do you think does those jobs? And it's us. It's those that are underrepresented, those that are marginalized, those that make up these, like you said, entry-level jobs. So again, thank you. You validated me. I feel awesome. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm not against the boycotts, right? I
don't see the purpose of them long term. Like, what is the purpose long term? You know?
So let me give you my for a second. I'm almost 62 years old. When I was born, the Civil Rights Act didn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay. I came into a world where there were still 2 fountains. It was still there when I was little. My dad couldn't get his paycheck. He was working on the World Trade Center in New York. He was in construction. and they didn't give the men their paycheck, the Black men that worked on that site. They had to go to a funeral home in a local office. My dad was a part of trade union Local 780, which was a union, and the office was in a funeral home downtown Manhattan, down in Bleecker Street and down below Wall Street. And my dad had to go there, not on a Friday, but on a regular day, if he could catch them, to get his check because they didn't pay the Black people at the door. I've been in the world of work for 40 years, actually 42 years, because my older son is 40 this year, and I was working 2 years before he was born. But I actually started working when I was 16. So let's say I've been in the world of work for 45 years. When I entered the world of work, women weren't seen in leadership. I entered a leadership development program at age 22. And I was one of the only Black women in that program, 1986. Have we made progress to today? We have. But here's what I know, and here's the regret that I have. My father, who is sitting out in my family room right now, he's 96 years old. What he has seen is remarkable change and everything standing still. What I know for a fact is, if we don't exercise our economic power, we will forever be taken for granted. If we do not protest in our own way, I don't want us to be out in the street protesting nothing. Okay? I want us to use our economic impact as a form of protest. Even if we don't stop going to those stores, we stop going 10 times. We go 2. Right? And we show that you can decide that you want to erase us for the 99,000th time. I posted a thing on LinkedIn this weekend. Pastor Jamal, he did I found a post on Instagram where he says, what can you do to us that you haven't already done to us before? And that's the fact. We're a really resilient people. But we have to now recognize that we cannot be on the menu of each other. Let me break this down just a bit for you as we wrap up here. Let me just break this down. We have always been on the menu of other people. They've always had a reason to disrupt us, whether we're rising, whether we're getting educated, whether we're moving into the spaces, whatever it is, we've been on their menu. We have been on every section of their menu, and we never leave their menu. What we've not been on is our own menu. Our own menu. I did a podcast episode on Inclusion Unscripted 2.5 years ago that said we have to build from the cradle to the grave an ecosystem that empowers us. I don't care about everybody else. We have fought the civil rights movement for everyone. I was shocked yesterday when I saw Adobe announce that they were no longer going to do DEI hiring, and they were no longer going to do this. I think it was Adobe that did that yesterday. And the woman that made the announcement was an Asian American woman. Okay. I hear you. I see you. I'm not going to be fazed by you. This is not pitting one group against the next. What this is saying is that we cannot exploit each other. We cannot re-exploit each other because now is the moment that we feel we can re-exploit each other. I had a harsh discussion with a group of folks a few weeks ago where I said, it's not that you're giving away your knowledge, but just like for me, it's important that you are successful, and I'm willing to take the time to pour into you to make sure you are successful. That's what we have to do with each other. We can't make ourselves the prophet of ourselves, meaning we try to take our pain and sell us a solution to get out of our pain. right? I don't have any business, but I'm going to sell you a solution to get business because I have decided that you, Miss Black person, and I'm a Black person. I'm going to put you on my menu of profit. I'm not going to create any ecosystem that says, together we rise, together we fall, together we sit in the middle. Right. And in order for us to become a better people among ourselves, we have to recognize that we are not the menu item. We are not the menu item. We, in this moment, have to figure out how to empower and move ourselves collectively forward. Whether that means that you take one other person and say, what do you need to be successful? How can I be a sounding board for you? How can I impart my knowledge to you? How can I help you be a better version of yourself so that you are profitable and in turn recognize that I can be profitable? Here's the deal. I worked with a lot of Black diversity and inclusion leaders inside of organizations. They were the most cautious. They didn't spend money effectively on us. They
Nope.
didn't empower us. They didn't bring us
Nope.
forward because they still felt in their mind that if they brought us to the table, they would not look like they were a success.
Mhm.
Right? I had one of them ask me, well, how do you make money? Darling, you're hiring me. But if you hire me at the prime contract, I can really make money and
Wow.
I can hire 50 other people so that I can make their life better. But you're giving me the crumbs and then you're
Mhm.
expecting me to be grateful for the crumbs that you're handing me.
Yep.
Until we as Black people recognize that when we are in position of power, we bring ourselves forward. When we are not in positions of power, we empower each other so that we have somebody who has our back. That is the only way that we are going to A, survive this, B, come out better, and C, recognize our future built based on what we want.
Yes.
The question is, and I had it on my t-shirt at South by Southwest, what do we want next? And until we understand as Black people what we want next and how that's going to look, we are not going to come out of this any better than when we went into this.
Whew. Well, thank you again. I'm still not going to change my mind. I'm not doing it. But everything you said is about meeting the moment. Everything you said is about navigating through the changes, navigating when we have to pivot. And I took a lot of stuff in, internalized a lot. I'm going to be employing a lot. But it's one of those things, it's like you have to get through it. Like my Bible study this morning was actually about the hardest part of anything is the middle. Like that's the hardest part. And we're in the middle and we can't give up. We got to push through because we're at the hardest part now. So let's just keep going.
We're at the hardest part now, but the
Yeah.
future for us can be very bright.
Yeah.
We cannot, and I refuse in this moment to think that the future is dreary and dull and
Okay.
not going to be what we want. The future is going to be what we make of it.
Yeah.
Right. And in this moment, I think it's important that we put our arms around each other, that we allow ourselves to grieve what we are losing and the fight and the things that we have seen and fought for. Right. But after we come out of that emotional desert, we need to come back out ready to have each other's back in more profound ways than we did before, recognizing that we are not competing against each other. We are supporting each other. We are uplifting each other. We are
Yeah.
building each other. And in the moment, we are here to make sure that if one person takes a step, they have somebody behind them pushing them to take 10 more steps. And if they have to take 2 steps back, if we have to pivot, I've pivoted 5 times in my business. I'm pivoting right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm making the decision that I'm not going to be caught up in inclusivity and all the words. I'm going to do the work, but I'm going to do it in what makes me happy now.
Mhm.
What we have to also recognize is that when we're pivoting, it's not shame. It's not that we failed. It's not that we aren't good enough. It's not that we haven't earned the spots that we fought for. It's not that we are bad people or that we live in a intrinsically horrible world. It is in this moment that we're taking a step back and we are using that time to figure out what we want next, and then we move forward.
Okay.
That's where we are. That's where we are. That in this moment is where we are.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't say enough. Like, you always, every one of our conversations turns into church for me. So I just love it. I just love it. All right, let's do our rapid fire real quickly, because this is also a fun part. Well, it's my favorite part.
Sure.
All right. Who's a well-known or lesser-known historical or contemporary figure who inspires you and we should learn more about?
Oh gosh. I am studying Garveyism, Marcus Garvey.
Really?
And I'm also studying the Maroons of Jamaica, indigenous tribe that is in Jamaica that we don't really know enough about.
Okay.
And so I think I'm earth-centric
Hmm.
in a
Okay.
historic context. Yes.
All right. So if you don't know who Marcus Garvey is,
He is a hero. He was just pardoned by the
yes.
prior administration. And he is, before there was a civil rights movement, there was a Garveyites. He's
Yeah.
Jamaican. He was a Jamaican hero. He made a bunch of missteps in things that he felt and did. But I also think that his foundation is a good basis for us to look back on for where we are right now and moving forward.
Okay. What fictional character gives you a glimpse of yourself?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Fictional character.
It could be from like a TV show or a movie or a book.
Character. Oh my gosh. That's a good one. I don't know that I have a fictional character that I'm like, maybe Bugs Bunny.
What? You don't get tricked.
Maybe Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
Maybe Bugs Bunny, maybe Roadrunner.
No, Roadrunner's the one that gets tricked all the time, right? Oh, no. Well, that's the... Wait, which one gets tricked? Is that Wile E. Coyote?
Wile E. Coyote, yes.
Okay, all right, my bad. Okay.
Bugs Bunny is just going along, eating the carrots. I'm good. I'm just going to go along with the carrot. I'm going to say, what's up, Doc? That's it. I'm just going to say, what's up? And I'm going to eat that carrot and I'm going to keep going.
Go about your business.
And I'm going about my business.
All right. What is your favorite empowering quote? I still can't say that word.
Oh gosh. So my favorite empowering quote is one by my mother. And her quote was, and was to me at the time, where you start out is never where you should end up. And that one sticks with me forever.
I love that. If you could spend a day shadowing someone in a different profession from your own, who would it be and what would you hope to learn from them?
Oh gosh. I think Gary Vee.
The inspirational speaker?
Gary Vee, the one that drops the F-bomb every day. I would want to shadow Gary Vee because I want to know how he does what he does and how he does it in the way that he does it.
Okay.
I think he would be the person that I would right now today for what I need. Gary Vee would be the one that I would want to shadow.
All right, you got to talk to my homeboy, Rich Rosner. That's his favorite person in the world is Gary Vee.
Gary Vee, yeah. So yes. Gary Vee is in the moment. That's my person right now. Yes.
Okay. What is your go-to songs, or music genre when you want to hype yourself up to conquer the day?
Okay, so it's Shaggy, Power of a Woman.
Shut up.
Shaggy, Power of a Woman. And my second song is She's Royal.
What's that? I
It's
don't know that.
yeah, it's by Travis Riley, and it's She's Royal. And those are
Okay,
my
I
two
have to
songs.
look that up. All right.
Powerful Woman and She's Royal.
Okay.
We actually my husband and I danced to She's Royal at our wedding 2 years ago. Yeah,
Oh.
so that's my favorite song is Shaggy, Power of a Woman.
Okay,
That's
I
my
love
favorite
it.
song. Yeah.
What is the best piece of career advice you've received you would give to your early career self?
Oh gosh. The best career advice I think I ever got was look people in the eye
Oh.
and have no fear. And I wish I had heard it earlier. I heard it early, but I didn't hear it.
Mm.
And I wish I had heard it earlier, and
Okay.
it would have become my fierceness.
Yeah.
Is just look people in the eye without fear.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you already have book. You already have this beautiful book. But if you wrote a book describing your career so far, what would the title be?
My upcoming book, What's Your Possible?
What's your possible? I love that.
What's Your Possible? That is my upcoming book. I'm working on it. I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year, maybe before. I was hoping to do it
Yeah.
first quarter. But I think it is What's Your Possible? It's the 8 voices that we hear in our head that stops us from being possible.
Oh.
And it's 8 voices that we need to empower so that we can see what's possible for us every day.
I love that. All right. So besides your book, before we get out of here, do you want to share any other upcoming projects, initiatives, fun times that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So the big thing that I'm doing is I'm moving all of my content to Substack.
Okay.
So we're moving to Substack. We're closing down our community. We have the Inclusion Learning Lab community. We're closing it down. We're going to move everything to Substack. I'm going to really focus in on the future of work and around, who's being left behind by the AI revolution.
I love that.
The biggest next thing I have coming up, which I found out today, and I'm so super excited about it. I am going to be a main stage speaker at the ATD International Conference. And I am speaking about the future of work and AI.
Okay.
And our theme for the conference is A Prompt Won't Fix That.
I love it.
So that is the thing that's coming up next. And then I think I'm going to spend some time this year finishing my book.
Yeah.
And getting out back on the speaker circuit and just really speaking really powerfully about the skills gap for women, how this is going to affect the global South. Because one of the things that we don't talk about is that we have outsourced a lot of roles to the Caribbean and to other countries. And now we're AIing most of those roles, and those roles are taken back. The GDP of a lot of these countries are dependent on our outsourced work. So it's a broader work. I think for me right now, I had to ask myself in this time of disruption, where am I in my career? And right now I'm in legacy.
I love it.
And so that's what I'm doing. Everything that I do, I don't really care how the social platform looks. I can do multiple things and I can do them all. And in this moment, it's legacy for my grandson. It's legacy for the women in my life. It's legacy for the women out there who are starting their career right now. And it's a legacy for us as people of color in the world of work.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I want to thank you so much for giving your time to me and really, really showing us how to meet the moment, how to embrace and navigate those pivots. And yes, for anyone who does not have a connection already to Margaret, please make sure you go and connect with her on LinkedIn. You can also go to theinclusionlearninglab.com. You can pick up her book, Leadership Self-Transformation, 52 Career Defining Questions Every High-Achieving Woman Must Answer. Be on the lookout for new episodes of What's Your Possible, and then be on the lookout for What's Your Possible book. If you're going to the ADP conference, make sure you see her on the main stage and give her a 5-star review. And then whenever you are thinking about how can you meet the moment, ask yourself that question that she told us to ask: who is being left behind? Okay. We will see you next time on Trap Chat. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.